What's up, Legion? It is I, Steve Zapf. We are here again with a weekly episode for I Still Call It a Lariat. Joining me this week, as always, with his Jesus light behind him, my boy Hound. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. And looking forward to chatting with you as always. Hello to the listeners. Hope you're doing fantastic.
Guys, we got a lot of wrestling stuff to talk about there. Some really cool things happened. Real quick, though, let's get into our nonprofit organizations that we're supporting. We have Tap Cancer Out. It's a series of jiu-jitsu tournaments that help out with the varying cancer relief funds. We have Alex's Lemonade Stand, American Brain Tumor Association, Isabella Santos Foundation, the Little Pink Houses of Hope, Camp Sunshine, Christopher's Haven, the Sidney Kimmel Comprehensive Cancer Center at Johns Hopkins, CureCervicalCancer.org, First Descent, and Tom Coughlin's J Fund.
The J Fund.
Now then, guys, we are also going to promote the American Red Cross. They are helping out with the varying hurricane reliefs, most notably Hurricane Helene right now, but who knows what this upcoming Hurricane Milton is going to do. Guys, I will have all of the links in the description below, but please go help out. Everyone needs some help on this one. The hurricane destroyed so many places, and like places that don't normally get hit with these hurricanes. So please, if you can help out with either one of these organizations, they need as much help as possible. But with that said, let's talk some wrestling.
Is that what we're here to do?
I think that's what we're supposed to do.
Maybe there's a vicious rumor.
RASSLIN wrestling. Wrestling. All right. So I'm actually gonna start off with this upcoming week, and not the week we are reporting, but the upcoming week. We get the first time AEW and NXT are going head to head in a while. We get AEW's title Tuesday because AEW Dynamite is going to be on Tuesday because of the baseball playoffs. And NXT is going to be on their second show for the CW from St. Louis with Randy Orton on it. We're going to see how that plays off, which one feels like a bigger show right now. But I'm kind of excited to see the competition back a little bit.
Absolutely. And I firmly believe NXT is going to outperform AEW, but I think AEW will receive a bump in numbers because you're going to have folks who are going to cycle back and forth who are in the mood for watching some wrestling that night, commercial break, what have you, and going back and forth. I think ultimately you may get a chance to have fans of either who are almost exclusive potentially bleed over to each other, and that can only help both products.
I completely agree with that. I think competition is good for wrestling in general.
Competition is I'm so glad that there's competition now. I lament our decades ago, not to age our old selves here, but how we talked, how there just was, we are getting there.
We walked uphill both ways in the snow.
I can say that too now because I have a kid who I can be like, man, you don't know what it's like. But it's a beautiful thing, and I know we're oftentimes pretty hard on AEW, but it's because we've discussed at length how much potential we see there.
I say this all the time. It feels, and I know this almost sounds like an artsy version of saying this, but it feels like there's a renaissance of wrestling going on right now. We have, if you don't like one version of WWE, you literally have 3 different brands you can go to. You have Raw, you have SmackDown, you have NXT. You know, just about any wrestling that you want to find right now is a fingers tips away via the internet now. Like, you can watch Ring of Honor, you can watch AEW, you can watch TNA, you can watch Japanese wrestling. You can go online and find old wrestling if you want. And I love it. I love the fact that this is something that we are able to do because I love going back and watching old matches. I like finding out matches that I didn't know that I was going to be able to find out about. Like sometimes you find a match that you didn't know was on a card, and thank God it was there.
Absolutely. I mean, again, aging ourselves here, but I remember tape trading. So,
I do remember tape trading.
For the dirt sheets.
Tape trading is a real thing, kids. For those of you who don't know, there was a point where you had to have a little cassette thing that you put into what was known as a VCR. And I want you to understand how many copies of the Coliseum home video Ricky the Dragon Steamboat tape I went through in my life. You know how many times I had to re-buy that thing, and I had to find it every time.
Gosh, those are such good memories.
So speaking of the value of the competition, AEW gets its new television deal officially. And here we go. You get a little bit of view on that one. So this has a lot of what we were thinking it was going to have on there. A lot of what we said. I believe it's in between 150 and 170 million per year for the next 4 to 5 years is what they're saying, or 3 to 4 years. And I know it says multi-year renewal. It doesn't really say on here how much or how long, but the one thing that it did say on there, which is what you and I have really speculated on, was the pay-per-views, and the pay-per-views going on to Max. So it does say in there that the pay-per-views on Max will be at a discounted cost. That's kind of what I assumed it was going to be. It's going to be. I wouldn't be surprised if you pay the $15 for Max or whatever it is at this point, and they sell you the pay-per-views for $30 instead of $50. So most people already kind of have the Max app at this point, although knowing that all of their weekly shows and all of this other stuff is going to be on there kind of adds to the idea that you might get some more subscriptions out of this. Because this is something where, Hound, I know you and I have spoke, we do have certain television apps on us right now where like you and I both have Sling. And a lot of the reason why I have it is so that I can pay attention to wrestling realistically.
It's the only reason I got it.
And the fact of the matter is, if it's going to be on an app that I already have and I don't have to keep paying for Sling, that takes me off of that and now maybe moves me into paying more attention to Max and their products. I do like their stuff because I like a lot of the WB stuff. I like a lot of the DC shows and cartoons that come out on there. I realize the DC Extended Universe gets a little bit of a bad rap here and there, but some of the stuff isn't half bad. Plus, John Cena as Peacemaker is just it's amazing. And it's got the greatest opening. Fantastic. It's got the greatest opening ever. Ever.
It's just hard to watch because you can't see him.
It's so hard. All I see is a helmet and a red suit. So weird.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm understanding right, AEW is going to be housed there, but I was unclear on whether or not it would be. I've been busy for the last 2 weeks. Can I catch up and just queue up direct? Because if that is what's available with this, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that is a very, very smart move.
I think so. I don't know if they're gonna have live stuff. I'm sorry, folks. I am trying to read this while we're going with this. I know a lot of the live stuff is going to be the pay-per-view stuff, but it looks like it might be something where if at the very least, if it's not streamed live like WWE is going to be on Netflix, it's going to be like, immediately the next day it'll be on there.
That's a smart play because, we're at a point now where is it 7 out of 7 wrestling is available? So
6 out of 7? It's at least 5 out of 7.
Yeah, it's at least Monday through Friday.
It's 6 out of 7. It's Monday through Saturday.
Yeah, so
and they've taken pay-per-views off Sunday, so that's the only reason why it's 6 out of 7.
Yeah, and with that, people do have lives. Not everybody can commit multi-hours each night to this. Not everybody are lunatics like we are. And I think that's very smart.
They're not. Why not?
And plus, I've been saying this since my 20s. I always said cable's kind of going the way of the dinosaur, and we're going to get to a point where virtually everything we consume media-wise is just a la carte. Anyhow,
I think it is too. I mean, that's kind of where we're at in the world, just in general. Even the apps even the stuff that people stream so that they have real cable, so to speak. It's still just off of the Hulus and the Slings and the stuff like that. Very few people carry actual cable nowadays. At least anyone under the age of, 55, which is really where we're at as far as cable or satellite dishes go. I mean, they're streaming like DirecTV and stuff now.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say you and I were at 55. Like, dude, don't hit the accelerator, man. We're getting there, but come on, I don't want to get there yet.
Because we don't feel that. I feel like we're 72.
My mind is 18. My actual age is almost 43. My body is dead.
Yes. I'm actually surprised I'm on this show right now. Oh, man. All right, guys. But let's move on to some weekly stuff. We get the debut episode of NXT on the CW. And man, did this show look huge. Like, they sold out what looked to be like what was that? That had to be at least a 12 to 15,000 seat arena, right? Like, that's, I don't know an exact number on there, but that looked like they were sitting to that 10 to 15,000 point.
Oh my gosh, it escapes me right now, but I'm very certain it was in the teens.
I think they actually did say it was like 13 or something like that.
Yeah, and I think it was like close to mid-13s. But either way, the show itself, and we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording, it didn't feel like this is the training ground, and these are the folks who are going to go out there and make some mistakes as they're learning their craft, and we're getting to watch the maturation of people, which granted we are, but it's as if it finally truly planted a flag and is a viable third option, almost to the point where when inevitable draft season and stuff comes around, you might see folks drafted to NXT.
I wouldn't mind that, honestly, especially some of the guys that you're not sure what they're doing things with. Mm-hmm. I would like to see that. Honestly, I miss NXT being a viable third option like it was a couple years ago. Like, up until kind of Vince took the reins away from Triple H a little bit, and the 2.0 thing, the original Black and Gold brand, man. I know you and I used to gush over it. That was where you found your love for Finn Balor. That was where you found your love for a lot of these guys. And I remember Kevin Owens debuting hot down there.
And maybe I'm misremembering this correctly, but I think you and I were in the same room watching when Owens debuted and when he turned on Sammy, and we both were like, no, because it was such a big deal that Sammy finally won it. And for, granted, those two have been fighting each other for, 25 years now.
Something like that. They since the womb.
Yeah, basically.
But they're not brothers, but they came out and they were like smacking each other's bassinets in the hospital.
And some of my most favorite memories, wrestling-wise, have always included you, but have included us watching NXT stuff. I mean, outside of the gatherings for the pay-per-views at the time before they were PLEs at the Townhouse, and having our friends from TGI Fridays there, watching everybody's eyes tear up as Shawn Michaels said, I love you and I'm sorry, but
I told you, man. Next time I see you, that's how I'm saying goodbye to you. when we are in a room together, I'm going to say, I love you, I'm sorry, and super kick you. And that's it. That's how I'm saying goodbye. I'm not going to just say goodbye anymore. That's it. That's how we leave each other from now on.
Oh my gosh! The only reason that didn't happen last time I saw you, you were getting married, and
That's
kind
true.
of had to be.
I couldn't get my leg up that high that day.
And I had to be
tuxedo.
Nice. Yeah, I had to be nice for a couple days.
Oh man! So the show opened. This show actually opened with Shawn Michaels and Triple H coming out and doing a really cool little in-ring thing, but they debuted the new NXT heavyweight and the new NXT women's title belts, and I love these belts. There's not a whole lot of change to them. There's just enough, and they look like pro title belts. They look like they're in the big time now.
The color scheme really helps with that because the NXT titles, I mean, even when they had that giant X, for the most part, they've always been minimalistic. And the black and chrome, black and silver, black and platinum, whatever the actual thing is there, lends itself to that. There's a reason why, chrome and black is so classic. And I think that's a very, very smart move. We talk a lot about title belts and stuff. And I'm a fan of very simple designs. Like my favorite design title of all time, we're going old school here, but it's a WCW TV title. And
I do love that.
Clean and classic. And that's kind of how they look. We don't need them all super modern. I don't need an eagle fighting a snake on top of a spinner and all this other stuff.
Why not?
I mean, look,
how
if they
do you
made
expect to sell it otherwise? You need to sell it, man.
Although a different show, I do want that giant monstrosity for Saudi Arabia. I want a replica of that.
It's a different show. We talk about it in the review. We'll get more into that in the Bad Blood review, which, by the way, will also be out this week. Pay attention to that. Cheap plug. So
Segway.
The opening match for the CW debut is going to be the challenger Giulia versus Roxanne Perez for the women's title. Like I said, being the first match on here, that's a statement.
It is.
This is one of those cards. This is one of those shows where you either want to be on first or last. You want that memory, and that's saying something for them. Giulia's entrance I have written down here kind of reminds me a little bit of Ricochet's old WWE entrance.
A little bit.
Like it's got the weird lights and
yeah.
the silhouette. I will say this: the NXT crowd was hot that night. They were there, man, and good for them. Like it was Chicago. Chicago's a wrestling town. Like they showed up.
Yeah.
Sorry, you go.
No, the crowd was fantastic, and it's something that maybe not enough folks who are just like kind of the common layperson watching wrestling just for their male soap opera, if you will. The amount of times that a crowd can change the way you see a match just because people are so hot for it. And we've all been in the crowd before, you and I, and and getting involved with that. And there's like a weird hive mind thing going on. It's a really cool thing. And to see the crowd, they were on the edge of their seats. They were excited for it. People were legitimately fooled at near falls. It was a cool thing to see.
I liked it, and I liked the start of this match. So they had really good wrestling at the start of this match, and both of them were going for pins. I liked that.
Mm-hmm.
My one knock on the beginning of the match is I thought the wrestling was good. I thought the striking was actually bad. They needed to lay in a little harder, and I know I'm not saying they need to stiff each other, but they were throwing shots, and it seemed like they were 15 miles away from each other on some of them. And this match, I needed them to to turn it up a notch, so to speak.
Yeah, we didn't need people out there really throwing hands at each other's faces, but you and I worked enough matches in the ring to know there is a difference between snug and stiff. And they really should have leaned into being snug. And Giulia is known for being snug as it is.
That's
That's what
where I was
surprised
going.
me.
That's what surprised me as well. Is Giulia has that Japanese strong style, and that was kind of where I was getting to with this. Is it felt like they needed to slow down at points too. I don't know if Giulia, I don't want to say that the moment was too big for them, because I don't think that's what it was. I think the moment, the style was too different for this exact thing. Like Giulia hasn't had that many matches with the WWE style and the WWE ring, which is bigger than most of the rings that she's used to working in. That 20 by 20 ring makes a whole lot of difference, man. And you can, and I think part of it is, and I say this a lot of times with some of, I guess it would be the women's gimmick matches. They're so busy trying to get to the next thing that the thing that they're doing now is, it gets a little sloppy looking.
I see where you're going with that, and I have a kind of a different takeaway. It's in the same vein. And it was definitely not being dwarfed by the moment, because this is not something where we're going, oh my gosh,
I don't think it was that they weren't ready. Like, that's not what I'm trying to say whatsoever.
I know that you're not trying to say that, but I want to make sure that it certainly wasn't that they were dwarfed by the moment or anything like that. The takeaway I got from that is they were too excited. They were too far in front of themselves. Like, when you get really super into something, and we've all been guilty of it, where your words go faster than your mind, and you end up tripping over your words, everything else. And that's really what it was. The two women did a great job.
Like I said, there were just certain points where it felt like they were moving a little bit too quick. It felt like they got ahead of, like you said, they got ahead of themselves a little bit.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think it hurt the strong style aspect a little bit more than it hurt Roxanne. Roxanne's been in the system for a minute. She understands how to work the system a little bit more. I get that this was supposed to kind of be Giulia's coming out, regardless of what the ending was. I'm leaning a little bit more on the Roxanne side of things again. Like, this really made me, if I was someone who didn't have full faith in Roxanne, this match actually gave me more faith in Roxanne than I already had.
Absolutely. And I wonder, and I don't know how true this is just pure speculation here, I wonder if part of that too is a bit of a language barrier while they're out there, and wondering if it was like everybody trying to be nice to each other. Oh, and we'll call this together, as opposed to letting Roxanne lead and call that match. Because in a scenario like that, while Giulia's every bit as talented between the ropes as Roxanne is, she's as talented as any other woman on the planet. But new system, bigger ring, first real showing. I mean, Chelsea Green, like, she had her match with her on NXT, but it's a different ball game here with the start of this. And I wonder if there was a little bit of a language barrier thing there too, like creating that.
I could definitely see that. I could definitely see it being a language barrier. I could also see, and again, I don't want to be too hypercritical of this, because this was still good overall.
Mm-hmm.
But for the start of the show, the first match ever on your debut on a new network, you need it beyond good. You need this actually better than great. You almost need this to be pay-per-view quality, above pay-per-view quality at this point.
Well, you can even simplify that down. Like, let's just talk like a letter grade, like back in school here. You needed them to come out and get an A+, and they finished with a B, borderline B+.
I'll agree with that. And like I said, I don't hate this match. I just, again, I'm not doing my job if I don't nitpick this a little bit. We end this whole thing with a masked woman coming out and laying out Giulia and throwing her in. And the masked wrestler is Cora Jade, which she'll be here until she gets hurt again or needs some other form of plastic surgery.
Well, I mean, I don't really have a feeling either way on the whole Cora Jade thing. The takeaway I have from all this, and this is something for the listeners to maybe comment on, I would love to see a conversation and for something for you to think on a little bit, because I think this is going to be something where initial answer and then letting it marinate possibly changes some opinions. So the reason why I was saying I think it's foolish not to put the title on Giulia at the start, it's not because you're killing momentum from this international star. You can't go wrong with Roxanne as your champ. You can't. But I don't think Giulia's ever going to be a Rhea, Becky, any of those caliber on the main roster where I think Roxanne will. And I think Roxanne has done all she can in NXT. And with the start of, basically let's just call it the start of something new here. I understand not putting the title on Giulia immediately like that. I understand the business aspect of it and all, but I wonder if this is going to lead to something where we're going to get a Hideo Itami situation out of Giulia.
So I could absolutely see that. I could see that where she just kind of treads water down on NXT. Yep. Now I am going to throw this theory out for you. Yes, taking the title off Roxanne and maybe making Giulia the new face of the women's division. Or is this a case where, and I know this isn't always the case, but does maybe Roxanne want to stay down there in NXT for just a little while longer? Because you've got Stephanie Vaquer coming in and coming after your belt. And if you're someone on the Roxanne Perez level, you're that good. Because she is that good. Now, Stephanie Vaquer just had a hell of a match with Mercedes Moné. If I'm Roxanne Perez and I have the chance to work with her, especially you look at Roxanne, you look at the size of her, she's only a little thicker than Mercedes is realistically. She goes out there and says, I can do better. Do you have that mindset maybe? And I'm not saying that's what it is, but you have someone who just came off of such a hot series of news articles and matches, and everything about her debut was kind of either steeped in controversy or excitement. A little bit of both, realistically. Does she maybe want that match?
Well, I'm pretty sure they announced already that Stephanie Vaquer was going after the winner.
The winner of that. So that's what I'm saying is.
So, well, at this point, and this is me just kind of fantasy booking this out, if, fine, Roxanne is staying down there, I was under, and that's the thing, I didn't think she was showing up on Raw or SmackDown immediately after. As most champions, when they're getting ready to move up, don't. They tend to hang around for one of the 2-3 weeks, promo, another win over somebody else, and then they lose as they're leaving town to the person that they'd already dropped the title to, kind of thing, and cementing it. So if you're going to do that, I think you also need to have Roxanne retain against Stephanie Vaquer and then start building 2 or 3-way between them for what are they still calling the PLE's takeovers for NXT?
I think they have some of them have their own names. They're basically still just takeovers.
And so maybe you're building to that. Now the question is, we're starting to head towards colder weather, which, I mean, at the rate time is going, it's October already, so basically Happy New Year at this point with how fast the fall goes. But I wonder if this is something where we're going to build this out to the NXT near one of the big four. And it could be the one near Survivor Series, but it could be near the Royal Rumble, or are we building this all the way to whatever? I can't remember the name of it, but
I believe Stand and Deliver is the one for Mania.
That's what I was going to. Are we building this out all the way to there? I don't think so, because I do think that Roxanne will be in the Women's Royal Rumble and will have a good showing.
I could see that.
But
I definitely think so. But and again, all of this is just speculation, and none of this is even hearsay or conjecture on our part. We are just asking the questions.
and then if that's the case, if you do make it to that 3-way, I do believe that's the spot where, I mean, it's Roxanne's definitely dropping the title, but then it's open for debate. Do you want to go Giulia or Stephanie Picker? Because
and I think by that point, it's who's gotten hotter by that point, realistically. I mean, hopefully you get lucky and you get almost like a Punk Rollins Drew situation where no matter who you drop it to at that point, you're just right in money. That it's like the worst problem to have, right? So, but we end up getting Roxanne retaining the gold. She, with the help of Cora Jade, this is the return of Cora Jade. We move on to a really cool backstage exchange with CM Punk and Lexis King after Punk was talking with Ava. I really like this. I like the level of respect that Punk says he shows for Brian Pillman Sr. and Lexis King saying he wants to do it on his own. And I like Punk kind of being the guy to be like, hey, I'm not always the best person, so you have these two versions of you. The guy that's going to win at any cost, or the guy that's going to do it the right way. But you can't do both.
I've never hidden the fact that I've never been the biggest Punk fan.
By the way, this is not shocking because it's actually a weekly thing that we hear.
Yeah. And I will
it's
say
almost
though,
as surprising. It's almost as much of a surprise and a secret as the fact that I love SummerSlam.
He's winning me over with his stuff down there with the young talent in NXT. It's something I never thought I would see out of him, because I really did think he was one of the guys in the back that was only out for himself, and maybe he was for a long time. And I'm very certain that when Shawn Michaels retires and CM Punk invariably ends up becoming the guy down at NXT doing the Shawn Michaels thing, I think they've just set this up for a long, long time of success. And a beautiful thing about that, rest in peace, Dusty, but who's going to teach you a better promo than Dusty when he was alive than CM Punk?
Exactly. And it's a different style of promo, but I think he pulls the best out of people.
Yeah.
So I completely agree with you. I didn't even think that Punk was going to be taking over that route, but that's so cool. And also, let's face it, you grow up.
Yeah.
Do
we?
Sometimes. I mean, I say this, I'm literally littered with action figures behind me. But you don't stay 20 forever, right? Like you don't even stay 30 forever. Like the guy who I was. How's your body feeling again?
Dead.
Perfect. Awesome. But the guy that Punk was when he left the WWE is not the guy that came back realistically.
100%. He's definitely a matured guy. And he was definitely the guy in AEW.
Well, here's the thing is, I think going to across the street, and I'm not saying this to bash AEW, when you're in your late 40s or almost 50s and you're not looking to deal with that level of kind of, I hate to say it, but young guy stuff that goes on in AEW's locker room a little bit, and maybe that's where the frustration came from. Is you go to WWE, you know for a fact that the WWE is going to have structure. Everything is going to be structured. No, you're not going to find out that someone went off script unless it was necessary. What you expect is going to happen is what's going to happen in that match. You're not going to have someone before you go out there where they know you're at Gorilla, bash your name when they're not even supposed to have your name in your mouth.
Yeah, and again, this is something we don't need to harp on here, but it's
I'm just saying
it's a level of professionalism. That's all the difference is.
Punk is a different guy, and he's at a different level than he was even 10 years ago. And I think we're actually getting, dare I say, the best version of Punk that we've ever gotten.
Yeah, he's winning me over.
He's the guy who was always the fighter and now understands the big picture, so he understands what he's fighting for now. And I like that about him. We end up getting a video package that sets up the street fight, and then we get Wesley versus Zachary Wentz in the blow-off street fight for this feud that has been, in my opinion, pretty awesome. I like this. I like the brothers feud. I like this good friends, better enemies thing. And these two guys have brought it every time they go there. And I like the fact, and I know I said this last week, I like the fact that Wesley is the heel, but he's not afraid of Zachary Wentz. It's one of those, like, if he was afraid of Obafemi, I understand. But you're not afraid of your brother. He's not your big brother. He's just your brother. And in fact, I think it's always said that, like, Wesley is like the big brother. So, like, you got big brother syndrome. I'm not going to be afraid of my younger brother.
So their feud has been fantastic, and we kind of referenced to the comparison I'm going to make to them. We've referenced these two earlier. Now, it's a different style and everything else, but it's another KO Sammy.
I agree.
Great friends, better enemies, and you can have it get to a point where the two of them do come back together, and you get the crowd who's super into it, and then the crowd being heartbroken when they turn on each other again. These two,
and
without
just do
even
it over and over and over again,
without even really meaning to, these two may have just tied themselves together for the next 20 years, and that's not a bad thing.
It's definitely not a bad thing, because they are doing great business as far as I'm concerned. I have written here, this match had a hot shot start. I think this match needed a hot shot start. You don't even with street fights and things like that, you don't always need it. You could have the build up, like the ring announcer saying who it is, and you can have the stare down. I think this was one of those matches you didn't need a real entrance. I needed them to be ready to go at each other's throats the second they saw each other. And this was one of those situations, and they did it. I also thought this match I have written as the perfect combination of athletics and violence. They did some amazing stuff, and they did it in such a violent way.
Yeah, and to harken back to what you were saying about the hotshot start, if the two of them were bigger dudes, if they were both the size of Obafemi, that's where street fight, you need the stare down, because it's the visual aspect of it more. These two are both, they're not little guys, but they're not giants.
They're essentially cruiserweights.
Yeah, so
light heavyweights, whatever you want to call them.
So let them immediately go after it, because depending on what the level of the feud is, like, there's a difference where, so like, if we were talking about like Punk and Drew, at this point, yes, if they're leading something, you can have a hotshot start, and it makes sense, even if Drew's the one running out after Punk or Punk's the one running out after Drew, to start it however it was, because of the level of that feud. And the fact that these two are both cruiserweights, light heavyweights, what have you, if they didn't do that, they would have done themselves a disservice, because you're going to wow the crowd, because those two they're freak athletes.
They're so good. Yeah, and we keep saying Zachary Wentz has the coolest finisher in wrestling, as far as I'm concerned. That UFO cutter, he needs a title just because of that, realistically. Like, I'm excited that TNA pushes him even the amount that they do, because I love seeing that hold. That move. It's not a hold, it's a move. We ended up getting Wesley winning this, which also makes sense. This is kind of the blow off to this whole feud, and Wesley is the NXT guy. I get it. You want to give a little bit to TNA and a little bit to NXT. In this case, I feel like NXT had to win.
100%. Because if this was a TNA pay-per-view, Wentz has to win.
Especially, I could have seen if this was a TNA pay-per-view and Wentz still had the X Division title, Wentz going over. You need your champion to win.
You do, but it's one of those things too where in a big statement like this, while they are working hand in glove, you do still have to kind of look out for your own because
that's what I mean. Since it was NXT, that's fine. But if it was over on TNA and he was still the X Division champion, I'm sorry, did I say NXT the first time? I meant if they were doing on TNA and he was the X Division champion, they would need to put Wentz over. I might have misspoke the first time. I'm sorry about that.
Well, either way, and this is the thing. And back when I was wrestling, somebody said this to me. Like early on, you're sitting there and like, oh, well, why does he have to go over? Why can't I go over? Man, you look bad for 3 seconds. It's okay. It's okay to be on your back looking at the lights for 3 seconds.
Especially if you're a heel, man. A good heel can lose almost every night and keep heat. I'm just saying, just for those wrestlers out there who are wondering, MJF can go out and lose every night. I'll tell you what. Go back and watch how often the Dudley Boys win. Go find out for me.
Okay. You want a real-time example? Dominic Mysterio. Guy never wins.
Dominic Mysterio never wins. And you talk about nuclear. Is there a level past nuclear? Like gamma radiation heat.
I love it. I love it so much.
All right. We get, moving off of Wentz and Wesley, we get Miz TV with Oba Femi and Tony D'Angelo. I want to be nice to these guys, and I don't think this program is good for either guy. And I've heard someone say this, and it took someone else saying it and me watching Oba afterwards. Oba doesn't do anything. He's awesome in the ring. I'm not taking that away from him. He's a huge monster of a guy. He's a great athlete. That man needs a talking piece. He needs a mouthpiece. He absolutely needs a Heyman, because this whole idea that he's the ruler or whatever it is, whatever. I'm not going to rant too much about this, but he's uncomfortable on the mic. He had big, white, scared eyes while he was talking. You want to know what makes me not nervous about him? The fact that he had big, white, scared eyes. And the problem is because he was uncomfortable, Tony D'Angelo also looked uncomfortable. Oba is benefiting off of a lot of these guys who have really good character work. And I think that's where Tony D'Angelo is he's a good character. But even the stuff that they're making him do now makes him look weak as a character to make Oba look strong. And it's not working very well. And truthfully, Miz had to save this segment a few times.
I think that's why they had Miz there. Because, Oba Femi is going to be somebody who, while he's probably never going to main event a WrestleMania, at some point he'll have a Braun Strowman-esque title run. Tony D'Angelo, I think he'll get stuck into the mid-card vortex eventually when he gets up there. But
unless he switches his stuff up completely. Like, I could see him getting some type of new character, or them making this character more Scarface, more Pacino, more along that, more actual Godfather than cartoony Godfather.
If they leaned into that, yes. And the whole thing that I'm getting from all this, and it's a different movie series, and we had the Rocky style promos. In a weird way, Oba is Ivan Drago, and we're leading up to this. I would not be surprised if we see Oba dropping this title to Tony D'Angelo, because Oba did just set the all-time record for the North American title.
The North American title. And I wouldn't be surprised with that one either. Yeah, it might happen.
And this could also just be a pairing of the two. Like, they might just, as much as it's you think you got something special, because the two of them in the ring should be able to produce, a solid B2B plus. They should be able to. But, oil and water. And Oba does either need a mouthpiece, or he needs to become just the silent assassin. Don't say a word. Just be big, scary, go out, destroy everybody, and leave.
So I'll say this: Obafemi, as far as being on the mic, is hooked. I either need him to stop talking completely, or I need him to start talking so much that he loses the fear of talking. It's actually the same thing for both of them. I want, and I it's funny because I have it written here for Hook later on, but like that's where I'm at. Is I either need him to stop talking, or I need him to start talking so much, like being on the mic every week, so that he figures out who in the hell he is.
He might need. You almost need a Miz for an opponent, for someone like them. You need somebody who can, at any point, save the segment. Because say what you want about the Miz, I am a fan of the Miz, and I think his ability to speak and his ability to cut a promo is absolute top tier. He is, he might not be the absolute best in the world at it, but I challenge you to find me a bad Miz promo.
I don't think you have one, especially in the last couple of years.
100%. He's leaned into it, and he's another one heading towards the twilight of his career.
I agree.
And it wouldn't be such a bad thing for, God, we could get Obafemi not doing like the Damien Mizdow thing, but if he came up with, and he was like by the side of the Miz, like learning tree kind of thing, sitting under a learning tree there, not the worst thing in the world for him.
So you want him with Jericho. Got it.
I don't want Jericho with Jericho.
That's fair. All right, let's move on a little bit. We get a women's tag team match. It was Lola Vice and Jada Parker versus two members of Fatal Influence, JC Jane and Fallon Henley. It wasn't a bad match, but it's still kind of the popcorn match before the main event. And really the only point of this was to lead to the 6-woman tag match that you're going to get next week, where you get Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill along teaming up with the Women's North American Champion to go, Kehlani Jordan versus all three members of Fatal Influence, thus injecting even more star power into NXT next week.
Yeah, look, it was a match.
It was a simple match. That was the thing. It wasn't bad. It did its job. It got where it needed to do, and no one got hurt. So
yeah,
kudos to that. There's not much more, honestly, if it weren't for the fact that it led to the furthering of this storyline a little bit with Kehlani Jordan and Fatal Influence. It might have been a match that I might have fast forwarded normally because it didn't have any real outcome to it. I will say this: a match I didn't fast forward. Main event. The main event. For the NXT title, we get Trick Williams versus Ethan Page with CM Punk as the referee. It's like he was a hometown boy, man. Like, is he from Chicago? I don't even know anymore.
I doubt it. He's clearly from Texas.
Obviously. Possibly Pittsburgh. I like that we moved into a Trick Williams era. I think Trick is going to be a huge star, and I think he's the right face for them moving forward. I like that they're kind of leaving the window open for Punk to come down and wrestle for them now. With the GTS to Page at the end.
See, the takeaway I got from the GTS to Page, and I remember when we were talking about leading into this, and I was very much on the idea of Ethan Page was keeping it because Trick was going up. I hadn't considered the flip side to that coin. Truthfully, Ethan Page is probably more main roster ready.
I think Ethan Page is a star. He's a diamond in the rough, realistically. He's a guy who, listen, I may lean a little bit more WWE, but I'm not a WWE guy. I'm not an AEW guy. I'm a wrestling guy. With that said, Trick Williams is a guy who Not Trick Williams, I'm sorry, Ethan Page is a guy who I really appreciate things that he said in recent interviews. They asked him what the reason, like he kind of took control of his career a little bit, got into phenomenal shape. And when they asked him about it, he said, well, sometimes you have to take a good hard look in the mirror. And all the things that they can say you lack in, if you take that away, well, what's the reason? What's the reason? Well, if my body is one of the things that you can say, well, I'm not the best. I don't look like an athlete. Okay, well, now I look like an athlete. So now why aren't you pushing me? Why aren't you doing this? Why isn't that happening? You can blame it on someone else if you have done everything within your power to take away what they can use against you, basically. And I really like that about him as a person and as an on-screen character. I like what he does. I think he is absolutely main roster ready. I wouldn't mind seeing an Ethan Page LA Knight war of words.
And that was the takeaway, because it was something I hadn't even considered. Like I was saying before, I had not considered the fact that, yeah, Page is definitely at a point where you can put him on the main roster, and LA Knight is a perfect example for that, because you're going to have two people there with good personalities, the ability to work the crowd, and they'll get the job accomplished of everybody loving LA Knight and hating Ethan Page. They'll do their job properly. I was a big fan of this match. I thought Punk did a great job refereeing it, the whole nine. My only critique of the whole thing, I thought the finish looked weak. That was it, though. And if that's all I'm saying and that was literally just slightly out of position for that trick shot knee.
That's the thing. And I think a lot of that is, I think Trick needs to be wrestling. Again, I think he needs to get his reps in. I think he's one of those guys that if they're going to pull away from the house shows, I think if they keep NXT house shows, I think it would be the best thing for Trick Williams. I think he's one of those guys who just needs some reps in. But all around, man, this debut episode, I think it delivered. I think it did everything it was absolutely supposed to do. It made you interested. I'm interested to see where they go from here. I like the new logo. I like that everything looks more serious. Nothing about what they're doing right now insults our intelligence. And that's where I want to be as a wrestling fan. Is I don't want them to insult my intelligence. I want to suspend disbelief enough where I can believe that these two guys need to fight each other over this title, because that's what needs to happen. And you know what? Let's face it, they still need a rubber match.
Yeah, they definitely do. I mean, you could argue that they don't, because Page won it after getting hit with a trick shot and falling onto somebody. But whoever they're going to put the title on going forward with that, whether it's Trick Williams, whether it's Ethan Page, you're not going to go wrong there, because Trick does need more reps. I almost wanted him, and I'm glad that it looks like he's not going to be going up to the main roster so quickly, because I really thought he was going to get lost in it. And I thought it would have done him a disservice.
I think right now he'd get lost in it. I think if you give Trick, because he's not an old dude by any means, if you give Trick 2 years realistically, I think, and you bring him up to the main roster, the idea of having him work with a guy like even like a Braun Breaker at that point isn't so far-fetched.
So, and this is where I think you'll know he's ready, is when and if they're going to do that, give him a long title run right now. Don't make it where it's been pretty predictable for the most part when NXT titles are going to change hands. You can kind of just, if it's you're, time. It's
either
one
time
of those things.
Or like, someone's about to get called up.
So if you're going to do that, I would love to see his character morph into an extremely egotistical heel. And when he can pull that off and the crowd loves him, if he can make the crowd hate him, he'll be ready.
I could see that. That definitely makes sense. I like that. Look, I love him. And I think he has, I don't think he has a ceiling. So I think he has so much potential. as far as we say it every week. He has a ton of potential. But that was NXT this week. I'm excited for NXT next week. I think we'll get I definitely say that this was at the very least an A- show all around. I think we might be bordering on A plus for this, but
I wouldn't quite go A plus, but it's definitely an A.
It's an A. There's a good chance that Wesley Zachary Wentz street fight might end up becoming match of the week, even though it wasn't a real wrestling match. It was a fight. But let's move on to AEW. And we have Dynamite this week. They opened up the show with a Blackpool Combat Club, well, the new Blackpool Combat Club, the newest iteration of it, if you will, a vignette for them. I thought this was one of those things, and you and I have talked about this before we came on. This really finally showcased these guys in the light that they probably should be showcased.
So we both watched this again just before starting to record. And this, I thought, was the single, cinematically, the best looking vignette AEW has done to date.
I absolutely agree with that.
And the takeaway from it, and like we discussed, Pac is the newest member of the Blackpool Combat Club, so him just questioning where Wheeler Yuta's head at makes sense. He's there the least amount of time. Claudio leaning into I'm still the same guy, I'm still your boy, I'm still your bro, makes sense. Marina Shafir, at least she didn't speak English. And then Moxley, for the first time in a long time, he came off menacing.
I agree. I think this came off exactly how it should have. And it was absolutely the best shot cinematic vignette that I've seen from AEW ever. If this is the route that we're going, and even if we have to maybe take some more stumbles, I'm excited about this. This makes me excited about what AEW is doing.
And that's the biggest thing, is you want to find a way to be hopeful for the future. And for a while there, it felt like, AEW was just constantly shooting himself in the foot. And sometimes you gotta, what's that saying? You gotta break some eggs to make an omelet. Well, maybe we're starting to see that get to the other side. And another big takeaway from this, and we had touched on, I don't know if it was the previous episode or the one before, what's going on with Yuta. They're positioning Yuta to be a big deal. And his in-ring work is stellar. His facial expressions are stellar. He needs some cleaning up on the mic. But again, that comes with reps. But
I think he needs a different tone on the mic. I don't know if he needs to learn how to yell or maybe almost like whisper. I don't know. It's something about the cadence of his voice, unfortunately. And I'm not because even what he says when it comes across, I don't know how else to describe it other than his voice sounds like he should be doing computer work, not wrestling in a ring. Looks like he should be producing this show right now. Like he should be doing the edits when we're done. Yeah. And you know what I'm saying? And I hate saying it like that, but because he's so good in the ring and like you said, his facial expressions, he makes me believe this stuff. He can always get a little bit bigger. That's such a nitpick, but I don't care that much about that stuff. I care more about how his voice sounds, that cadence of his voice. If he could either get it to the point where maybe he yells so he gets a little bass, a little Barry White in him, or he takes it way down and he gets the Jake the Snake Roberts whisper, maybe. I think that might be where he needs to live in the world.
I understand what you're saying there. And this will be my only counterpoint. The scariest man basically ever to walk the planet had a voice that you were not scared of. And that's Mike Tyson.
That's fair. Yeah, but Mike Tyson was Mike Tyson. And that's like saying Brock Lesnar's voice isn't scary. Yeah, but the rest of Brock Lesnar is completely scary.
And Yuta maybe spending time in what I hope they're going to do with him, with Mox, with Bryan Danielson, because that's two very, very solid people to learn from on the mic. Again, I challenge you to really find poor Danielson or Moxley promos. It's so weird that to think that the fact that somebody has a little bit of a nerdy voice could be the thing that holds them back, but it really is true that sometimes
it's really sad that
yeah.
that's what we're looking at, and it's one of those things where, again, it's something that he's gonna have to. I think it's how it's gonna. He needs to learn how to deliver his promo so you can get past it. And I think that's going to be where it is. I'm not saying he needs to go and change his voice, obviously.
Of course not.
Don't start doing a Batman voice where he's like, no, don't do that. Figure out what level of his voice he needs to be at. And I'm actually going to lean towards after I said it, I think if he goes more the Jake the Snake Roberts route, you don't need to yell all the time. You can talk about the bridges of Avalon and, have that Edgar Allan Poe voice, and
I see where you're going with that.
like Keats and stuff like that. Like if you were reading true poetry or like dark poetry, have them live in that realm. But all around, like I said, this vignette did what I thought it should have. This was a good start to what is going to be Dynamite's 5-year anniversary show, and then they open with Ricochet and Will Ospreay for the international title. And this is a situation where, how we said with Roxanne and Giulia, you wanted to open big and you do it with this. I thought the match was a Ricochet Will Ospreay match. All around. I thought 85% of this match was exactly what I expected to see from the two of these guys. It was Ricochet and Will Ospreay doing Ricochet and Will Ospreay things. I think the difference is they now move at slightly different speeds than they used to, and Ospreay still moves at a little bit of a faster speed than what Ricochet is used to doing, because I'm actually going to change it from where we've said it might be age catching up to Ricochet. I think this is, you spend 5, 6 years in the WWE system. It's hard to turn that off. And they work a different style. And I don't mean just a different style. They work a different speed.
Well, AEW's ring is smaller too, I believe.
And it's also smaller. I believe they use an 18x18.
So you're not wrong when you say this is a Ricochet Will Ospreay match. And to be honest, outside of the Sammy Guevara Ricochet match, I thought this was Ricochet's best showing.
Absolutely
I thought the match did everything it needed to do. It gave you some of the favorites. It gave you Will Ospreay showing that he has Ultra Instinct. It gave Ricochet showing that he is an unbelievable athlete. And Ricochet, God bless him. I mean, the guy's got incredible genetics. It's almost funny because Will Ospreay is not cut up like Ricochet, yet if you gave Ricochet's body to Will Ospreay, we would be talking about how, like they always say, if you were to craft a professional wrestler in the lab, it's Randy Orton. We'd be saying it about Will Ospreay.
I agree. I completely agree with that. There were certain parts of this, and I know that this is the Ospreay Ricochet formula. For my taste, it was a bit too choreographed. And I also understand that is their style of match. That's why it comes as a nitpick from me. It's not always my favorite type of match to watch it. Like, you could see them waiting for each other on certain things. And again, for those of you who absolutely love Ricochet and Will Ospreay matches, I'm not saying that it wasn't good. I can't do the stuff they can do. I don't know many people who can do the stuff they can do. But a lot of it you could definitely tell was, well, I'm waiting for him to come here. I'm waiting. I've got my arm out for an extra second or two. And again, this is me having been in the business and Hound having been in the business. We see it a little differently sometimes than the average fan does, where I see that the arm was stuck out there for an extra second longer than it should have been, or that he was turned around an extra second longer than he should have been. And unfortunately, as much as I try to turn it off and look at it from a fan's eyes, I can't unsee it.
Well, there are certain things you can't unsee when you spend so much time. I mean, you spent more time in the business than I did. And I was in there for, I think, just about a decade. And you for over 2.
Yeah.
So, and it's the same thing where, and you know this from any time that you and I have gone out anywhere, like whether we're going out as a group of friends, all my years doing security and everything, I can't turn it off. I walk in, I have to be able to see the door, the whole nine, just because. And it's just years of that. And I see what you're going for here, but I want to offer an alternate perspective. Ricochet has not had the smoothest start to AEW, which kind of surprised a lot of people, including me. I wonder if they leaned heavy into that to almost give that match some training wheels. I wonder if it's a case of Ricochet, like he's down on himself right now, and he's really doubting what he can and can't do.
He might be, and I could see that. I could absolutely see that. Like I said, as far as the match goes, the reason why I said 85% of this match was exactly what I thought it was going to be, and was great. I don't like the ending, man. I don't like the ending. And I'm sorry if I don't like that we got a double pin with a restart just to have Takeshita come out and get a no contest. We had a no contest either way. We didn't need to restart the match. I know I've used this term before, and I know people are gonna maybe say that I sound too much like another certain old school wrestling podcast host, but it was a hat on a hat, man.
So a theme that we've had and everything we've talked about with AEW recently is too much.
Too much. It was overbooked.
Too many suplexes. One or the other. And it was fine. I would have been okay with the fact that the two of them gave all they had and both of their shoulders were down. I would have been okay with the fact that, we're interjecting Takeshita into this now when he got involved, because, I mean, I'm all for Takeshita being in anything. I really thought it was going to be more like Takeshita Okada, but
that's the thing that's the other thing is everybody wants Takeshita Okada, and there's only so many times you can go against the grain. And the fact of the matter is the fact that we keep presenting Takeshita. It's one thing to present Takeshita as the guy who doesn't like Will Ospreay. That's fine. He cannot like. He can be the guy that I don't like Will Ospreay. It doesn't matter if we're on the same side of the fence. I still don't like him. He can always be that guy. The fans want to cheer Takeshita. They want to. And him going against Okada is a better opportunity. Again, this match was, like I said, it was just overbooked. You did too much at the end, and it gives people like you and me too much time to dissect and again, that might be one of those things where if this match didn't end the way it did with that double finish, I might not have looked at this match for the rest of the stuff that I found to nitpick about. Once you find one thing, sometimes you go back and you find other things.
Yeah, and for anybody out there listening, it may seem like we're constantly harping on AEW, and like I said earlier, it's not because it's like, here's another time we're having to watch Tony Khan's show. It's because there is so much goddamn potential there. There's so much potential. There's so much talent. I mean, for crying out loud, I'm going to name 5 people there And you tell me that we're not talking 5 of the top in the world. Will Ospreay, Pac, Claudio Castagnoli, Kenny Omega when he's back. And truth be told, at that point, I would Takeshita. You tell me that those 5 are not in conversation when they're going on at all times to be considered as among the best performers on the planet. Come on now.
I'm gonna take all those names you said, and I'm gonna raise you an MJF.
Yeah, I can't believe I even forgot him. Listen, I think MJF is the best talent they have there, so it's almost not even fair. It's almost not even fair to compare him. He's levels above.
He's on a different level than almost everyone in wrestling right now, realistically.
It's gonna. I'm sure some people won't agree with this, but the only other 2 people I would say that you could put, like, say MJF is standing shoulder to shoulder with, and it's Roman and Cody.
Yeah, I agree. That's exactly what I was thinking. But like I said, the match did what I would have liked I would have liked to have had the double pin finish for this, and maybe just had that match. Maybe get a rematch for them at Wrestle Dream rather than the 3-way match now that we're now getting with Ricochet, Will Ospreay, and Takeshita. But
there'll be no Jamoken.
Yeah. I don't know. There might be some Jamoken. I actually, you know what?
No.
Ospreay and Takeshita don't tend to do too much Jamoken, so we'll see. We get TV time with the Learning Tree. This was a big setup for basically Jericho and Mark Briscoe to go at it for the Ring of Honor title again. Jericho threw some heavy words around about Jay Briscoe in this. And I mean, I'm sure this was something that was talked about beforehand, but I feel like Jay Briscoe is one of those people now in wrestling that if you say his name, there better be some goddamn reverence on it.
Yeah. So I was kind of late to the party with the Briscoe brothers. And I will say, and rest in peace, Jay Briscoe. He became one of my all-time favorite characters because he's just not too goddamn far off from being any of us idiots turned up to 11.
They've said it all the time. The Briscoe brothers were the Briscoe brothers. Who they were in the ring were really who they were. And like the reason why they would have to have Jay and Mark have feuds is because they were really brothers from Sandy Fork, Delaware, who grew up on a chicken farm or whatever and wanted to beat the crap out of each other sometimes.
So anybody listening, if you want to have a treat, go back and search up like old Briscoe Brothers promos. And Steve, I know you'll remember this one. Do you remember the one where Jay Briscoe stole his dad's shoes and the cigar, and the dad came out in the underwear and chased him around?
Yeah, and by the way, Papa Briscoe is jacked.
Papa Briscoe's the man. Oh my god!
There's a real good chance
Briscoes pulled switchblades on each other.
like there's a good chance that like if we were at the Briscoe's house and Papa Briscoe came out, he might smack you on the back of the head, and you weren't his kid.
And I'm doing not a goddamn thing about it. It doesn't matter that I dwarfed him because at that point, it was not a joke. If you go watch their old promos, how many did we watch? It's hunting season for the Young Bucks, and 900 AKs are in the back of their beat up Ford jalopy.
Listen,
it's cosmetically pleasing. He's going to chew in his face.
It is a tragedy that we never got to see the Briscoes versus FTR on the main event of an AEW pay-per-view. It's a true tragedy because they could have carried the tag team world realistically. That was FTR and the Briscoes are Midnight Rock and Roll. They are Steiner's Road Warriors. They are all of those guys. They are the Horsemen versus, whoever at that point. They're those guys.
We can even go generations up. They're Dudley's versus Edge and Christian. They're Dudley's versus the Hardys in their prime. Yeah.
They're absolutely those guys.
They were so special, and it was, thank God Jay's daughter survived that car accident. But it was one of those things where it broke my heart to hear that he had passed away. And again, rest in peace, Jay Briscoe.
It's so sad. And again, rest in peace, Jay Briscoe. You are sorely missed.
And I love that anybody you hear talk about him, like you said, put some damn reverence on his name. Listen to anybody from any promotion who speaks about him. As much as Jay Briscoe was Jay Briscoe, in the locker room, he was loved by all.
He absolutely was. But like also, he might not be a guy that you try.
I fear no man God ever created other than Jacob Fatu. And that list only has one person on it now because unfortunately Jay Briscoe passed.
Yeah, I don't know if I wouldn't start a fight with Jay Briscoe.
I
don't know if I want to start a fight with Mark Briscoe either, though.
I didn't feel comfortable.
Even if I could take Mark Briscoe, I don't know what it would entail, and I'm not ready to go down that road.
Look, I will tell you, anytime I have to go into Delaware, I'm uncomfortable because I know they're there. Or at least.
Yeah, right? Oh, man. All right. Let's move on a little bit. We get Hangman Page versus Juice Robinson. Hangman pretty much eliminates the entirety of the Bang Bang Gang in this match until Switchblade Jay White returns and kind of evens the odds and puts Hangman through a table and does all types of stuff. I do like Jay White. I like him a lot, and I don't know what it is, but I don't know. Is it just me, man? Like, please tell me this. Does he look smaller in AEW than he did in New Japan? Like, and I've been thinking it for a year. Like, he was always in shape, but like, I don't know. Like, he's got like Paul Orndorff arm. Sorry to put it like that, but like his arms don't look like if you look at him front ways, he looks like he's a cut up dude, and then when you look at him from the side, his arm looks like it has definition, but it looks like it doesn't have enough size for the rest of what his body is.
So I see what you're saying there, and if you could go back, and it's really hard, like if you took a side-by-side comparison from the time in New Japan to the time in AEW, the guys in New Japan were a little bit smaller. So he did look bigger.
Is that all it is? Because that's really where I'm at. Like, I like Jay White, I think if you give Jay White some serious promos now, not kind of the joking promos that he's been doing for the last year and a half, a real serious promo, we get some great stuff out.
Yeah, and so to finish off on your initial thought, Jay White, when he was in New Japan, he was always in incredible shape. I mean, any of us would kill to have a body like that, but he was a little puffier. That's all it was. So he was shredded with a tiny, tiny bit of fat. Now, dude has, like a swimmer's body. So okay. It's like he's taken himself from 13% to...
Yeah, he just cut off the baby fat, basically.
Yeah, 13% to like 9% body fat is really the difference. The only thing you're seeing there. And yeah, when it comes to his arms, he's got one of those long biceps as opposed to like, Big Papa Pump where it's muscle on muscle. Yeah, his biceps huge and powerful, but it's long, so it's never going to peak the way some others would.
Fair enough. Okay. See, that's why I like having you on here. Is you kind of give me the other side of this sometimes, because I was just like, he looks small lately, and it was bothering me. We go right into, we get a parking lot incident with Shibata and Jack Perry that is going to lead to their match at Wrestle Dream. Again, I just don't see Jack Perry losing that title anytime soon. But more importantly, we get a wrestling match. That's right, guys, a wrestling match between Britt Baker, DMD, and Serena Deeb, the Professor. This is a great match. This was a really great match. Again, the one knock on AEW was too much. I would have just had this finish be with Britt going over strong. You're in Pittsburgh, her hometown. She's over huge. You didn't need all the outside stuff at the end of the match.
Yeah, and that's where we keep saying that AEW is shooting themselves in the foot. You you took something that it's back to the arm being out just a bit too long, anything like that. You took something where on its face, you were like, all right. And then you gave us more and more time to put it under a microscope, because instead of cool, and then letting the ring announcers or whoever are cutting to the next backstage promo and everything else while they shuffle the talent out and get ready to move the next talent in, you gave it the whole thing just too much time.
Too much. And here's where I will give the defense of AEW for this. I know it sounds like we're just chopping him down, so I'm going to defend him a little bit. I understand what they're actually trying to do here. They're trying to give everyone more for their money. They're trying to give everyone more bang for their buck. So, yes, I get that. Here is my counter for myself in this case. Hound, you and I we grew up during the Attitude Era, if you will, the Monday Night Wars. The NWO, who was the main foil to fight against the NWO? Sting, right?
Yeah.
Sting didn't talk for a year. Over a year. He did gestures. He lived in a world of less is more. That's where I'm at. Sometimes less is more. And as much as you're trying to give us more bang for the buck, sometimes less is more.
So this is where, and I see where you're going with that, and I agree. Maybe I'm wrong here, and maybe me saying this out loud will spark a different chain of thought in my head. But a critique I've had the whole time, and it's very rare that I'm critiquing AEW's in-ring stuff. It's usually me critiquing a promo,
a booking,
or
like the way they book.
So, and the biggest critique I've had since my first time on this show was Tony Khan wants to be everybody's friend and not their boss. And I think he's almost like, oh no, we'll get you on here too. No, we'll get you on here too. And no, at some point you have to be like, no, this is what I'm doing, and put your foot down. And if people don't like it, go the hell home. Like, as much as I want the best for you, I'm your boss. And ultimately, as me wanting the best for you is a distant second from me wanting the best for AEW.
Because the best for AEW is the best for you. I hate to say it like that, but at the end of the day, what is best for the company is best for the individual.
Yeah, that's Triple H always said it best. What's best for business?
We get a little bit of backstage with Mariah and Willow Nightingale. This keeps leading towards what I feel like is going to be them at Wrestle Dream, even though we'll get a little bit more into that during the Collision stuff. And we get Private Party versus the Iron Savages, which again is leading towards Private Party challenging the Young Bucks for the tag team titles. I like the idea that it looks like Stokely Hathaway is eyeing up Private Party. I think Private Party kind of has a little bit more of a heel demeanor in them than what they've been being portrayed as lately. I think they're natural heels, and I think they kind of have this look about this way about them that people want to boo them.
Well, I mean, they're supposed to be party jerk-offs, pardon my French, but like
that's exactly
all my years in security. They're the guys when I walked in, I was like, an hour, I'm throwing them out.
They're diet street profits.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. And I know you said that to me before we recorded, is that like they're constantly compared to the street profits, but that's what they are. They're the street profits where instead of going to the club, they went to a house party.
Basically. Yeah, I mean, a private party.
Yeah, a private party, but not a good private. Like, it wasn't a private party. Like, hey, like you're VIP. Like, no, like you're in the backyard with a keg.
Don't be smirched with the most fun times of my life.
Huge news. we get the debut of Shelton Benjamin. I am excited about this. If the Hurt Syndicate, I believe is what they've got trademarked, comes around, awesome. My only thing is, and I know I keep saying this, Shelton Benjamin, who is like 100 pounds lighter than Bobby Lashley. Okay, he's a little less than that. But he's a solid 40 or 50 pounds lighter than Lashley is, and he towers over almost the entirety of AEW talent. That's my only problem with bringing in some of these big stars is you're gonna expose the fact that Darby Allin is 3'2".
If Marco's stunted growth was still there, it had to get in there with Shelton Benjamin.
Hold on, I want to point something out. Let's put Darby Allin in there with Bobby Lashley.
My goodness. This is
Bobby Lashley's going to stand in front of him and flex, and he's going to disappear.
Ultimately, and this may ultimately be a good thing, because Bryan Danielson is a perfect point of you don't have to be the archetypical type to reach top of the mountain. But he's the exception, not the rule.
That's what I'm saying.
Bringing in folks like Lashley, like Shelton Benjamin. I mean, hell, even Adam Copeland, he's another one. He's tall as shit. He's like 6'5".
I think he's like 6'4". He's a solid like 230, 240 too.
So ultimately, and I would love to see this happen, is you kind of almost define who's going to be where, and if somebody is going to cross that threshold, like it's think New Japan with the junior tag team, and that it's not a bad thing. In fact, you're putting people in a position where you're doing them a service at that point, because instead of putting somebody in the ring with a guy who's my size when they're, the size of, shout out if you happen to hear, but the size of a Ray Murray, it doesn't, that's a little inside joke.
Which also reminds me, Brian Sexton says hello.
I miss that handsome bastard.
Oh man, he saw that we did the Big AJ interview, and I was like, "Yo, just so you know, Big Hound Dog gave you a shout out on the show the other day." And he goes, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah, we were talking about you." He's like, "How is that handsome guy?"
I love that kid. He's not even a kid anymore, God. But no, yeah,
he's a grown man with a family.
How dare he?
How dare he? Oh man! All right, so let's get to the main event of this show, though. Again, the main event. And that's going to be our AEW World Champion, Bryan Danielson, versus our AEW Continental Champion, Kazuchika Okada. This was for double titles. I said this on our last show. This was an awesome stipulation that they had in here. I like that Okada's title could only be won during the first 20 minutes, and then after that, it's only for the world title. So after 20 minutes, Okada has nothing to lose. And I kind of like that. I like that you give that strong style, that you can get a definitive winner and not tarnish either one of those titles. Also, let's face it, this match, needless to say, was really good.
Yeah, who'd have thought Danielson and Okada would put on a good match?
I can't imagine. Actually, these are the types of matches, though, that Okada needs, because unfortunately, his matches in AEW have been a little weak.
This exposed, and we'd talked about this, and it was almost like we couldn't put our finger on what it was. And I think this exposed it, at least to me. Okada is a long-form wrestler.
He absolutely is.
If he's going to come out there and you're going to have him in a 5-6 minute thing, you have to have whoever he's out there with jump on him immediately for 30 to 90 seconds of heat, and then have Okada put it away.
I agree.
Because anybody who's listening, it may not be your cup of tea, But if you want to just be amazed with athleticism, go watch the trilogy of him and Omega and how hard and how hard they go for the length of time they go and how athletic it is. A lot of folks haven't, unless they're a New Japan fan, they haven't seen just how special Okada is. And the thing is, like, you wouldn't think it looking at him, but dude's special.
He absolutely is. And this was finally one of those cases in AEW that we got to see how special he was. A lot of so the match itself was good. We get Claudio and Pac coming down to and Mox coming down to take out Danielson. Wheeler comes out with the hammer, tries to save him. This sets up a tag team match between Bryan Danielson and Wheeler Yuta versus Claudio and Pac next week. I don't want to say the writing's on the wall, but this, because I don't think that they're going to go this route, but this reeks of Wheeler double-crossing Bryan Danielson. Or if it's not a real double-cross, him walking away from him.
I see where you're going with there. And yeah, it could very well be the most obvious thing in the world, where it turns out he was never really feeling conflicted about everything. And this was to weaken Danielson even further for the dastardly plan to come true. If they're going to do the Wheeler Yuta walks away, I hope it's after Danielson and Yuta pick up the win. And I would like it to be something where have Danielson be the one who gets the pin. And like right as the 3 is counted, Yuta rolls out, he powders, and he leaves. Something like that. Like, or if you do have Yuta be the one who gets the pinfall, which I believe you have to have the champ get the pinfall in that scenario. But if you're going to have Yuta do it, same thing. As soon as it's done, boom, and gone.
I mean, yeah, like I said, I just want to see what we're doing with Yuta at this point. And I think once we figure out, or once they show us what they're going to do with Yuta, I think that kind of gives us a better idea of the direction they can take this obvious push that they're trying to give him right now. But that was AEW Dynamite's 5-year anniversary. I thought it was a good show. Again, I give this a B+.
I am hopeful. It does seem like AEW has, I don't want to say turned a corner, because their wrestling product was never bad. The decisions behind their wrestling product was what everything we questioned. And it seems like they're starting to, I guess the best comparison for if somebody listening is not a big AEW fan, compare Vince WWE to Triple H WWE.
Exactly.
And if they're going to kind of leave that in the past, we can almost excuse 5 years is not long to be a company. It really isn't.
It's really not.
They're still going to have growing pains. 100% they're going to have growing pains. They're going to have missteps, the whole nine. But I believe that at least they're falling forward, if you will. It seems like they're starting to fall forward.
I can see that, and I think they're getting some stuff that's really going in their favor. Let's move on to Collision this week. Honestly, there's not a lot of stuff that we need to cover as far as Collision goes. We had Darby Allin versus Johnny TV, otherwise known as John Morrison match. Truthfully, the match itself is good. My notes on this are Tony Schiavone is still the worst.
I knew it was coming.
Screw that guy.
Sorry.
I had to work that in subterfuge.
You got me to snort. I knew it was coming, and I was not expecting.
This match.
Oh, good Lord, I love it.
Oh, also this was just a chance for us to get Brody King to accept Darby Allin's open challenge for Wrestle Dream. So we're gonna get Darby versus Brody King again. The only thing about this is Darby's never actually pinned Brody King. It gives a little bit of a twist to it, but it's a match that we've seen quite a few times. But let's see where they go from it. So the Grizzled Young Vets versus the Outrunners. I don't have any actual notes for this match. My notes are they advertised what was going on during the show while they were in picture-in-picture with a commercial.
It was a definite continuity error.
Guys. I actually don't have any problems with your booking during the majority of this show. I have a problem with your business plan here.
That one didn't fall forward so much.
No, that just fell down a trapdoor straight into this. This was the pit that like Luke fell into at Jabba's hut. Oh my god. We get your girl Willow, and truthfully, this would have been a match that I fast forwarded through, but it does move forward a little bit of the women's title picture between her and Mariah May, and it's going to get us Willow versus Britt Baker on during Title Tuesday, and the winner of that gets Mariah May. I don't know if there's a world where it shouldn't be Willow at this point. There's been so much more history there, unless you're just trying to have the most amount of star talent there, in which case it's going to be Britt Baker. But this match in general, first of all, it's her and Trish Adora. My first question was who. Secondly, she has a baby face. She's a baby face, but she has a stripper gimmick. Let me get some of this out real quick. And it's a face match. All around, this has the writing of the wall of something that I'm going to fast forward through. I'm not going to lie, guys. Hound didn't fast forward through it because it was Willow Nightingale.
How dare you?
Telling the truth again.
It is true. It is true.
Listen, I'm working on Big AJ introducing you.
Yeah,
I planted that seed.
Don't worry. I'll be able to show how I'm smooth like sandpaper.
Jagged rock.
Yeah.
Jagged rock.
Smooth like a plane crash. I'll beat the paramedics by 45 minutes.
We get some more storyline between about Wheeler Yuta. I agreed with you. I think if we're going to make Wheeler Yuta a monster type scenario, it needs to be that like he walks in and just locks in submissions out of nowhere. Like it needs to be an immediate submission or something along those lines. It needs to be like he walks in, drop kicks the knee immediately, and hits the cattle mutilation instantaneously.
Yeah, I've been referencing that for Hook for a while, but yeah, right now with what they're doing with Yuta, because he isn't a bigger guy,
he's not. And they're having him overpower bigger guys, and it's just not. It doesn't do it for you. Can't have him overpower guys that are twice his size. It doesn't work. To go along with that, we get Hook on the mic about whoever attacked Taz. I know I said it before about Oba. Please stop Hook from talking ever, or have him talk a lot more, because he needs to talk. He either needs to talk more to figure out what he's doing wrong, or he needs to not talk at all.
The only thing against Hook, and it's the fact that if Hook was 6'4", Hook's a monster, and everything they've done with him makes sense, and he comes out Silent Assassin, a couple of versions of Taz Flexes, and then into what we would have called the Kata Hajime back in the day, but the Red Drum now. And
the Taz mission, the Kasha Hashmasha Mashame.
We need to jump for, brother. But
Jesus Christ. When your thighs are the size of humans, you don't need the other guy to jump.
And this is I don't know if we've referenced it on here, but Tazisms are some of Steve and my favorite things of all time. He's got something up his sleeve, but he has no shirt on, so he has no sleeves. Or my favorite of all time, what's in the box? It's a giraffe with his head tucked between his legs.
I love Taz lines. Oh,
you know
man.
what? Here's a possible solution. Honestly, get Taz off the commentary so much and have him be Hook's mouthpiece.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's what happens after Taz gets done with his surgery that he's having. He is having actual knee surgery. So the only other storyline movement we really got during this was Chris Statlander seems to be getting set up against Mercedes Moné. I am excited about this, almost less for the Mercedes match and more for seeing Statlander, who is kind of an intimidating athlete, versus Camille, because we're going to get that. And I'd like to see the woman bull match type of thing. Like, you get it with, like, we've gotten it with, like, the Bobby Lashley's and the Brock Lesnar's before. This is kind of like that. Like, you have two just freakishly strong people going at it, and I'm kind of excited to see that.
Yeah, I believe if Camille lets Statlander guide her through this, I think you're going to set something up special there, and it'll be something where when people review it, they'll be pleasantly surprised with the in-ring product there.
I absolutely think so, and I think Statlander's someone special. I really do. I think she's a special talent. I like that she comes up with her little catchphrases, like something different every week, just to see it. It was Saturday night. This one was Born Again Kristen. I like that. I like stuff like that. And we close out the show with House of Black versus Top Flight versus Private Party, and the winner of that gets the number one contender spot to go against the Young Bucks at Wrestle Dream. Private Party obviously took over this one, or took the win on this one. They have been setting this up for the last couple of weeks, where Private Party is getting a bigger push. I think that I don't think Private Party is going to win this, because I think you need to pry those titles out of the Bucks' cold dead hands, which they're not that young, so it might not be that long realistically.
The middle-aged Bucks,
the AARP Bucks. But also, I don't know, man. Private Party, there needs to be like a corner turn. They're at this weird in-between spot for them right now, and I'd like to see... I'm hopeful to see where they go. Honestly, like I said, with the stuff with them on Dynamite with Stokely Hathaway, I think that could be where they need to be in the world.
You honestly... I don't think they would go wrong with Stokely, but I would almost... as much as I'd love to see this, I could see the counterpoint of them being lost if this happened, but to see them with the Hurt Syndicate, I think that would do wonders for them.
I could see them being, if that is their name, the Hurt Syndicate, I could see them being like the JV members of the Hurt Syndicate.
Yeah, Hurt Syndicate adjacent.
Yeah, like, hey, you can hang out with us to learn how it gets done, but you're not really members yet.
Yeah, kind of like how R-Truth had to inform JD McDonough he wasn't really a member.
It's fine, because R-Truth is a member of the Judgment Day again, apparently. He thinks so.
And R-Truth is a member of everything. I'm convinced he's a member of the House of Black at this point.
R-Truth is a member of the... Never mind, I'll cut myself off there. That was good.
Let's not get canceled, sir.
I stopped myself. But he can be a member of my family, at least. I want him to be my friend. I want to believe he's my friend.
Yeah, I would. God, could you imagine if I came down to visit and we got to go out to like Texas Day, Brazil with R-Truth, what kind of a night that would be?
No.
It would be chaos in the best way possible.
Oh my God. Yeah, it would be so epic. All right, guys, but that's been this week's show. Hound, as always, I appreciate you. Real quick, guys, some of the content that we have coming out this week, it's going to be a little delayed, if for no other reason, because I don't know if you all have heard, but there's a massive hurricane coming directly at your leader. Hurricane Milton, which I never understand why they always give these hurricanes waspy names like that. Like, why don't we just call it what it is? Hurricane motherfucker.
Shout out Greg Norton.
Shout out Greg Norton, because this is a Cat 5 hurricane coming at me right now, and well, leave it to me to not go through one, not just two, but three once in a lifetime storms.
Oh yeah, you were here for Sandy.
I was there for Sandy. I was down here for Irma, and now I'm about to deal with Milton.
I've never been intimidated by a Milton.
Yeah, I'm intimidated by this one. It's like Milton Berle.
You get out there and you inform Hurricane Burl. Enough is enough. Go away now.
Yeah, just no. I'll take your glasses.
Yeah, no, hit him in the nose with a newspaper.
I bet you he has a monocle.
Proper ass hurricane.
Bow tie, top hat.
Well, somebody's gonna get hit with one.
Looking like Mr. Peanut. Yeah, I
just
swear,
remember,
if this hurricane comes through and it looks like Mr. Peanut, I'm gonna be so scared now.
Listen, just remember, if a dolphin hits your house, don't go outside. That's how the hurricane tricks you into coming out, and that's how they get you.
Point taken. I got it. Wait, let me write that down.
Actually, you're down in Florida. If a gator hits your house.
No, I'm definitely not going out there. I'm not going outside for flying gators. That's like the new version of Sharknado.
Oh my God. Gatornado? That's the best. Gator Cane. We just made tens of dollars of the movie franchise.
We can get somebody to star in it.
Legion, we love you.
As always, guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Please check out all of our bonus content. If you like what you hear, hit like, follow, subscribe, all that good jazz. Comment on our stuff. Let us know what you like it. Let us know what you want, what you don't like. Tell us what you want to hear more of, and we will do that. And guys, we do have some awesome bonus stuff outside of what we've already given you, but please check out the Big AJ interview. Please check out the EC3 interview. Both of those are amazing. And Hound, as always, I hate you, but thank you for being here.
Love you, buddy. Legion, God bless. Hope to speak to you again soon.
And as always, guys, tuck your chin when you bump.